Hey, this is Pamela Riemenschneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services, and I have Anne-Marie here from 210 Analytics. Anne-Marie, we've been talking numbers this week, and we finally got the big numbers for the retail spike from all these people stocking up, from their panic pantries or their quarantine kitchens or whatever we're going to call it.
Yeah.
What was your first impression on the 62% total store jump and what we're seeing in fresh departments?
Yeah, so it was very interesting to see how things developed. So that first week where we saw big jumps, which was week ending March 8th, it was all about non-edibles. So it was paper goods. Apparently one needs lots and lots of toilet paper, disinfectants, hand sanitizers, and it was really non-edibles that drove that total store spike. Then in the week of 315, meat, produce, bakery, and all, especially canned goods, frozen goods, those really came out strong. And actually it was edibles that then outperformed non-edibles. And so produce is right in that mix, and the numbers are incredible. I think, to your point, it is a lot of pantry and freezer loading, but I think it's also important to keep in mind that a lot of the meal occasions have shifted from food service to food retailing, and we automatically think about dinner with that, and I think we need to think wider. It is the snack occasions in the morning, in the afternoon, it is the lunch occasions. Students are home from universities, our kids are home from our schools. So instead of the little quick snack at school, it feels like I'm doing snacks all day long, and in my case, a lot of those are produce snacks. And so it is just a whole host of consumption occasions that have moved to grocery, and I think that's behind all of it.
That's a good point, because really I'm sitting here, I've got, I'm using a bunch of different apps trying to figure out what my pantry is full. I was just telling a friend, I cannot bring any more food into this house until we eat some of what we have. But all I'm thinking about is dinner. So I'm glad that you brought up that we really need to be thinking about what everyone's grazing on all day long, and making sure that you're not just opening the pantry and letting everyone eat chips and cookies, and that we're actually eating some fresh produce along with that. So these core items, the initial shop items, were citrus, potatoes. Those had huge jumps. A lot more vegetables than fruit. Onions, I'm looking at the numbers right now, sweet potatoes, but I'm hearing feedback from the people that are selling these items and other items, and they're wondering what's going to happen next week and what's going to happen with non-core produce items. Do you have any insight on what are we going to expect as people's shopping habits evolve over the next week or two?
Yeah, so the latest data on the books right now is the week ending 315, but a lot of retailers, packer, shipper, growers are reporting into me, and it certainly looks like as measures sharpened, school closures increased, often working from home increased, that week ending 322, which is the next one, is going to be even bigger. On the meat side, I'm expecting, to be honest with you, a plus 150% for that week. I don't think produce is going to be as big, fresh produce, that is, for the simple reason that we're seeing people split their dollars in produce three ways. We're seeing big over 100% spikes in frozen. You saw canned veg being over 200% that week of 315 already. So I think in produce, there's only so much fresh produce that people can either keep in their refrigerators or eat over the next couple of days. But I think even in fresh produce, we're going to see big jumps that week of 322. We might even have another big week after that. But then I think what's going to happen is we're going to reach that peak, and it's going to come down. As to your point, people's pantries and freezers and fridges are stocked, and they're starting to eat into that a little bit more. But at the same time, I do expect, because of larger families around the table now, and Pam, you'll appreciate this too. If you think about all the scramble evenings that you had, getting kids to soccer, getting kids out the door, we don't have those right now. So we're actually cooking meals instead of warming up some mac and cheese. So I do think we're going to see continued elevated demand, not to the tune of 100% plus, but I think demand's going to be high for a while.
Also got some, grower shippers concerned that retailers are too focused on the core items, and then some of the, and fringe items. I mean, mangoes are not a fringe item to me, but maybe they're not moving as much or as quickly. Or mushrooms. I actually just got off the Produce Marketing Association's retail call, and one of the retailers said they're walking the floor to see what's selling. And as a meat person, you've probably seen this too. What's not selling in meat is, things like the meat alternatives and weird cuts like chicken hearts and beef tripe. That's what I see at my store.
Yeah.
But in the produce department, we're seeing things that are not moving. Mushrooms are not as moving as quickly. Specialties, tropicals, maybe not moving as quickly. Is any thoughts on what we're going to see over the next couple of weeks of demand for that stuff going back up, or are we going to see SKU counts stay down?
So I think it's a twofold answer. One is operationally, these guys are doing an unbelievable job moving not only the volume through the system, but twice the volume through the system. So at a certain point in time, operationally, it's a lot easier to deal with a reduced SKU count with conventional only, with the big household penetration items. So I think just from a pure time and logistics point of view, some of the retailers just simply have to focus on that area. I think from a household penetration, you just hit the nail on the head. You call them weird cuts, right? Well, weird translates into a low household penetration. Like you mentioned meat alternatives, absolutely. They only have 14% household penetration. So yes, you're seeing this empty meat case with a fully stocked vegan or meat alternative, whatever you want to call it, section. Because at the end of the day, it has low household penetration. And that's how you have to look at produce as well. There's items like potatoes and yams and onions and tomatoes and lettuce that have very high household penetration, and so they're moving. But some of the lower ones, it's not only the operational issue, but it's also the items where, some people have to overcome that comfort barrier, knowledge barrier, and they're going to go back to the items they know. So I've heard too, it's sometimes hard to even get into contact with the buyers right now. Some of those you mentioned, mangoes, melons, etc. Just being able to forecast demand over the next couple of weeks, it's very difficult. But like I said, I think it's going to peak, and then we'll have elevated volume for ways to go.
I think produce is well positioned in it when we talk about retail forecasting, at least, because there's and I said this before, there's only so many cans of beans you can fit in your pantry. And once that's full, you still need something fresh to eat with your meal. And Greg and I have talked about this. You can't go anywhere right now. And for some of us who may be a little extroverted, maybe like to get out a little, the store is the only place you can go. So yes. I think produce is going to have that peak and then stay down and then come back down a bit. But I think they will definitely stay elevated, perhaps continue a higher trajectory than some of the stock up items. Because once we're stocked up, and we'll only be filling in after that.
Yeah, I think people are going through paper towels, etc., pretty quickly right now. So we'll see elevated demand there as well. But people have really gone deep into their supply. But I think produce, and also keep in mind, people want to eat fresh produce from a health perspective and building immune systems as well. So I agree with you. Lots of upside.
All right, well, let's check back in next week when even bigger numbers perhaps will be coming through from 210 Analytics and IRI. I'll be doing these weekly reports on grocery sales and movement. So we'll stay tuned. Thanks, Anne-Marie.
I look forward to it. Thanks.